I suddenly found myself with 2 weeks off of work. We make certain parts and ship them to a different country, to a different factory to put the final product together. The other factory had some equipment broken, and it would take a while to fix. Thus, the sudden time off. I was talking to a few coworkers on the way out of work on my last day, and noticed Jay had parked next to me for once. We went to high school together and had even been in the same friend group, but we didn't hang out with each other much since back then. Since we worked in different areas of the factory, we rarely had time to talk. "What are you doing with your time off?" he asked me with his car door open. "I'm thinking of seeing my grandmother this week. She lives near our old high school," I said with a shrug. He raised an eyebrow as if that was a shock. "Really? I'm going into town too to see my sister. There's a model train show happening this week too." The best thing about being an adult is that you can admit to your boring hobbies without too much judgment. Oddly enough, the model train show drew in a big crowd for the small town we were from. It's most likely because it was held inside a now-closed train station with retired trains brought in for people to see. Do you remember us hanging out on the tracks in our last year? I can still feel the bug bites. Jay smiled thinking back to those days. The summer before we all moved, we spent a lot of time roaming the tracks. Sometimes we spent the night, which caused us to get eaten alive by bugs. Jay had been there, but I don't remember us doing much together aside from some fishing. I've wanted to do that again for a while. I miss the good swimming spots. I felt like we had been talking by our cars for a while. I didn't like keeping him, when I bet he wanted to rush home to start his vacation. But I said something I didn't even expect from myself. "Do you want to this week? Walk along the tracks again, I mean?" He looked a bit surprised at my offer. At first, he opened his mouth to refuse, but slowly started to nod as the idea sunk in. "Yeah, here's my number. Let's plan this out." We quickly got each other's contact information and then started back home. Oddly enough, I thought the little camping trip might be fun. Back then, I didn't realize how much of a mistake we were making. We met again on Thursday, bags packed and ready to go. We planned to stay out until Sunday. We'd hiked along those tracks hundreds of times, with and without friends, so we didn't need a map. We both agreed on a landmark to stop and then turn back home. The weather was clear for the weekend, but we would have to leave early if that changed. The last thing we wanted was to sleep outside in a storm. Back then, we had blankets, a stolen lighter, and a tarp. This time, we both brought a proper tent, first aid kits, lots of water, as well as anything else we might need. It weighed us down, so soon we needed to change our ending landmark by the middle of the first day. We were walking far too slowly to cover as much ground as we wanted. But the idea of this trip was just to walk along the now disused tracks, and not to reach a certain destination. Kinda crazy we both ended up at the same factory so many years apart, I said as we stopped for a lunch break. We sat on the side of the tracks, near a bridge looking off into the water below. I'd had a few jobs before this one. I quickly found out I wasn't meant to deal with the general public. Some people could be far too demanding. Doing the same thing every single day was fine by me. Aside from serving jobs, there isn't a lot around here that don't require some college degree, he said with a sigh, thinking back to his own work history. "What did you do before you got hired at the factory?" I asked, realizing I barely knew anything about my old lukewarm friend. "I was at Red Lobster for a while. I got fired," he said, and stopped to take a sip of water. Jay was a mild-mannered guy. He never raised his voice and did as he was told. I couldn't imagine him getting fired for anything. Something that happened 3 months before he started at his current job came to mind. "You were behind the lobster heist?" I asked, shocked. There had been a small news story about an employee stealing all the lobsters from 2 Red Lobster locations, and smashing the tanks so new ones couldn't be brought in for a while. No one was named for the damages because, for some odd reason, no one could prove who did it. "It was a revolution," he said evenly, as if that wasn't one of the craziest things I'd heard. I laughed until my chest hurt. He only smiled. I don't think I'd ever seen him laugh before. I pestered him on and on about what he did with all the lobsters. He claimed they were in witness protection, which made me laugh even more. We didn't cover a lot of ground on the first day, but I think the start of our little outing went all right. By the end of the day, we were exhausted. There was a lot of good, clear, even ground near the tracks to set up our campsite for the night. We built a small fire to cook our dinner of canned beans and Spam. "Are you dating anyone?" I asked Jay, after I'd carefully removed the hot can from the fire pit. "No, single. You're with someone, right?" "Yeah, been together for a few years. Wasn't too serious to start with, but now we want to get married and all that. After we see how much everything costs, we decided to hold off for a while." Having 2 unpaid weeks off work wasn't getting us any closer to our goals. But it wasn't as if any other job paid as well as this one, even missing 2 weeks out of the year. "I don't know how most people in the factory have been able to get married twice. I guess things were cheaper back then," Jay pointed out. Our workplace had mostly people over the age of 40. I worried about the next 5 years because a lot of the older people who had been there for 30 years were all due to retire, taking all their experience with them. Me and Jay were 2 of the few younger people, aside from the contract workers. "Chrissy just got divorced, right? You could ask her out. She'd be great to have around if a service worker got your order wrong," I teased. We both hated Chrissy. She was the biggest Karen I had ever met. I have no idea how anyone dealt with her long enough to get married not only once, but twice. "I'd rather scoop out my own eyes with a rusty fork," Jay replied, in such a deadpan voice it made me think he fully meant the statement. I laughed, wishing I knew how funny he was sooner. After we went through the very slim dating options for him at work, we decided to turn in for the night. Normally it took forever to fall asleep, but I was so worn out from the day of hiking that I passed out in minutes. I woke up early, needing to pee. My back hurt, as well as my head. The pain made me question what we were doing out here. It took a few minutes in the morning to shake off the aches and the brain fog. Jay met me outside his tent after I came back from the washroom break. He silently started to take down his tent as I brushed my teeth, still feeling half asleep. "You sleep all right?" "I had a hard time. It's noisy out here." He started up a conversation after his tent was put away, and he helped me with mine. "Really? We're so far away from everything. What noise could there be?" I asked. "Raccoons having relations with a dying fox. Or at least, that's what it sounded like." I snorted and shook my head. Foxes were rare around here. There were also coyotes in the area, but I'd never heard about them approaching humans. "You didn't hear any cackling or see any weird stick people figures, right?" I asked with a raised eyebrow. When I was 8, I watched the Blair Witch Project and had nightmares about it for a full week afterward. It took a full year before I could be anywhere near the woods at night. "If anything like that happens, we're out of here. I don't fuck with cult stuff or witches. Unless they're hot," I added. He looked at me, internally debating my point, then nodded, agreeing. We got packed up and ready to keep going deeper along the tracks. The second day, we slowed down a bit, because we kept stopping whenever we saw something interesting. I took photos of oddly shaped trees and long-forgotten items on the sides of the tracks. We stopped near a dam under a bridge for a few hours, and found a fishing line with a rusted hook stuck in a tree. I cut down the line, tied it to a stick, and Jay dug up some worms. I was shocked that we actually caught a fish with our makeshift fishing pole. We let the fish go and stuck the stick with the fishing line in the dirt for the next person. That day was fun. Since becoming an adult, it felt like my time always had to be towards something. It was rare I could do something just for the sake of doing it, and without any other deeper meaning. "Is your girlfriend alright with you being out here for a few days?" Jay asked after our lunch break. "Yeah, she's normally busy over the weekends. She's an artist, so she paints for 3 days straight. Takes the rest of the week to recover," I explained. Jay appeared impressed. and interested, which made me happy I could brag about the person I cared so much about. Does she make a living from it? I've heard it's hard for artists. I nodded, agreeing with him. I'd seen how hard she pushed herself just to get where she was. I regretted that I couldn't do much to support her, aside from helping to buy materials. She sold some works to local galleries, even had her own show last year. She does landscape paintings on the side, and sells them at craft markets. She says she's a failure of an artist, but I'm proud of her. I could never do anything like that. I wish she could see how impressive her work is. Jay asked if I had any photos of her work. I pulled out my phone, and for the next half hour I scrolled through it, showing off what she'd done and how many paintings I'd saved from the trash because she was such a perfectionist. Isn't this one upside down? Jay asked, looking at one of the more abstract paintings. No. Maybe. It could be looked at sideways, too. I admitted. You don't know the meaning behind her paintings, and yet you like them? He said. Art is subjective. I can like the colors and not get the message behind them. I shrugged. He accepted that answer, agreeing with the statement. Dark clouds appeared in the distance, even though it wasn't meant to rain. Thunder rumbled off in the distance, but thankfully it didn't get closer to us. If it started raining, we would need to stop for the day. A cool breeze from the distant storm helped with the humid air. At least the bugs hadn't been too active. We should have hung out more in school, I told him, as I was carefully trying to walk one foot in front of the other on the tracks. Yeah, he agreed, but it sounded like he was thinking of something else. I bet if we had more one-on-one time together back then, we would have been closer friends now. Hey, thanks for not treating me the way the others did in school. My foot slipped at his sudden comment. I stopped and looked over my shoulder at him, confused about what he was talking about. Our friend group had a bad habit of trash-talking each other. I heard they had a group chat I wasn't a part of, where they used to vent about all the other people. But I had always assumed it was other people outside of our circle. What do you mean? I know they were kind of snarky, but we were kids. All kids are like that, right? He gave me a look as if we were both talking about the same thing. Wait, do you not know what happened back then? I shook my head, trying to think back on it. We had all stopped hanging out with each other near the end of the summer. I thought it was because everyone was moving on with life, and for no other reason. I found out I was bi and talked shit about it for months, before Jason tried to kick my ass. My mouth dropped open as so many things fell into place. I'd seen Jason with a broken arm, but he'd said he fell off his bike. Everyone avoided the subject, so I soon forgot about it. He was the leader of our small group. I bet a lot of people lost respect for him for either losing in a fight or taking his bullying too far, and the friend group fell apart. Dude, I had no idea, I admitted. There was a group chat. Jay trailed off. I didn't have a cell phone or a Facebook account until after high school. I couldn't believe I wasn't aware of such a big event. Did Jay think I was in on all that? If he did, then why would he agree to this trip with me? All of a sudden, he started to laugh. My face got red from embarrassment, from being so clueless as a kid. This was the first time I'd heard him laugh, and it was directed toward me. You still comfortable being out here with me? Jay asked after his laughter died down. The idea of him trying something hadn't crossed my mind. Should I be worried about something? I half joked. Nah, not my type. He shrugged. We shared a laugh, and I felt a regret building in my stomach that we hadn't been friends before this. We could have had so many trips like this if we just talked sooner. I'd always been lacking in the friends department. It sucked one had been there the entire time. There was a branching path in the tracks. The left path had been out of use for so long that most of the tracks had been pulled up and missing. The right path was the one we always took. We stopped near the crossroads, staring at something that made us feel scared to be in those woods. A headless, skinned deer had been strung up in the trees, by the well-walked right pathway by the tracks. The sun was starting to set when we saw it. The orange light made the body appear extra creepy. A feeling in my stomach made me feel like we were being watched, even though we hadn't seen another person for the past 2 days. "What should we do?" I asked Jay. His normally calm expression had a hint of fear in it. We both looked back towards the way we came and up at the darkening sky. "There's a town on the left path. We won't reach it tonight, but being closer to people would make me feel better. We should walk as far as we can, then set up camp for the night. In the morning, we'll go into town and get the hell out of here." That was the best option we had. Our phones didn't have the best service out here, and even if they did, I doubted the local cops would come out to pick up 2 scared guys because they saw a skinned deer. It wasn't hunting season, but some locals didn't care. With the cost of everything going up, I bet a lot of people had started hunting to feed their families. But why leave it out here? I'd never gone hunting myself, but I would have thought having a hunk of meat out in the open would attract other animals, regardless of if you hung it up. We got our feet moving down the uneven path. The dread of what we saw followed us, no matter how much we mentally rationalized seeing a dead animal out in the woods. We walked using the flashlights to guide our way, until the middle of the night. Our bodies hurt and our stomachs rumbled from skipping dinner. We agreed to stop when we came across a clearing on the side of the path. Jay's tent was simple enough to set it up in the dark. It was cramped, but we both crawled inside, not admitting out loud how vulnerable being alone would make us feel. We didn't talk as we struggled to fall asleep. Every sound made small bursts of fear shoot into my chest. After an hour of lying awake in the dark tent, I spoke up. "I need to pee," I said. "Damn it, me too." We both got up with flashlights for the washroom break. After checking that the coast was clear, I stepped out into the bush with Jay close behind. We stopped, and I felt his eyes on my back, waiting for me to get this done and over with. "Can you go behind a tree or something?" I asked him. I saw his eyebrows raise in the dark. "I'm shy." I hated to admit it, but I always found it hard to go with someone nearby. He sighed and listened, his flashlight beam moving around as he found a large tree to step behind. It's a hard task doing your business and holding a flashlight at the same time. I ended up putting it on the ground so I could focus on the job at hand. It took longer than it should have, because I kept stopping whenever I heard Jay moving around near me. "Hey, can we..." I started to say, after I was no longer exposed. I wasn't able to finish my sentence, due to a very hard object smashing into my face. The back of my head cracked against the tree behind me so hard I saw stars. The blow knocked me out, and at least they waited until I was zipped up to attack. A pounding pain woke me up. I moved to find my body on a cold dirt floor. My arms were stiff and everything hurt. My head was in more pain than the rest of my body. I moved and explosions of color burst behind my eyes. It took me a few long minutes to get to my knees, my hands bound tightly at the wrists. "Hey," came a soft voice beside me. I looked over in the dark room to see Jay sitting next to me. His arms were tied as well, and fear was clear on his face. My heart sank as I looked around the room to see just how screwed we were. The room looked to be an unfinished basement. The dirty concrete walls were covered with what I hoped to be water stains. Countless candles filled the space and gave off a suffocating scent. Behind us stood 10 figures wearing deep red cloaks, their faces hidden by darkness. In front of us was a single person in a cloak with golden accents, standing next to a large silver bowl on a tall stand. The bowl had delicate carvings of different animals encircling it. "Well, fuck," I muttered. My heart raced in fear as I tried to think of some way out of this. Before I could start begging to be let go, a set of hands painfully pulled my head back. The figures tried to get me to drink a strange liquid from the golden cup. I struggled and refused, until they covered my nose, forcing me to open my mouth to breathe. The liquid burned my throat as it went down. I wanted to puke it back up, but they covered my mouth, forcing it to stay down for a few minutes. Finally, they stepped away, as I hunched over, coughing and gagging. My vision blurred, and then the surroundings started to bend. I have no idea what they made me drink, but at least it lessened the pain a little. They did the same to Jay and then hauled him to his feet. He tried to stay in control, shaking his head clear of whatever they gave us. He was outnumbered and was forced to the front, and next to the silver bowl. I watched in horror as the leader grabbed his hair, to pull his head back, to expose his neck as the other held his arms. He thrashed, unable to get free of their hands. My body wouldn't listen to me. My legs were jello and my head spun as I sat still. I opened my mouth to call out his name, finding no words. A long silver dagger glinted in the candlelight. I let out a squeak of horror as the blade was pressed against my friend's throat, dragging across the flesh. Blood freely flowed from the wound, as Jay let out a terrible gurgling sound. At least the cut didn't appear too deep. Deep down, I prayed if we could just get out of here, he would be alright. The figure started to chant strange words I didn't understand. The blood in the bowl started to boil, and the candlelight changed to a deep blue hue. The words became louder and louder, pounding into my brain. I heard another sound that took me a moment to realize. It was me, yelling for it all to stop. A spark came from the wall in front of us. The cloaked figures were so focused on that they weren't paying attention to Jay. He slammed into them, getting free. The leader was next, as he shoulder-checked the man to the ground, the chanting lessening but not stopping. They'd done a poor job of tying Jay's wrists. He snapped the ropes, getting his hands free to grab the dagger that had been dropped, and sinking it deep into the leader's chest. My mouth fell open in shock, as a tiny bit of hope came. It was gone after what happened next. My eyes landed on the sparks coming from the wall, and everything slowed down. The sparks became colors and shapes I'd never seen before. They melted into each other, drawing me in. I lost all sensation in my body. For a while, the only thing that existed was the otherworldly sight. A hard slap to my face brought me back to my senses. It came too late. Something burst out of the sparks and landed on all fours, knocking over the silver bowl and spilling out the collected blood. At first, it appeared to be a thin, tall man with long black hair dressed in rags. A set of arms sprouted from his back as his face opened up. The flesh on each side spread out, showing a pit of teeth. In a flash of movement, the creature skittered around on the walls and ceiling, its body shifting into different long and gruesome forms. Jay stayed next to me, urging me to get to my feet. My body was too heavy to move. I simply could not stand up. I told him to leave, but he refused. The creature bolted around the room, picking off the hooded figures one by one, in a display of bloody cruelness. Soon, it drew its attention towards us. It suddenly appeared in front of us, standing tall with a human face. The dark cloth around his body moved, ready to change at any moment. I looked into his eyes and fell into a deep, unnatural despair. This monster was going to rip me apart, and there was nothing I could do. His body lurched forward, mouth open, about to rip flesh from bones. Jay's hands shot out and grabbed the creature by the face. He did something that snapped me from whatever spell the odd liquid had put me under. He pulled the creature's face to his own and forced them into a kiss. I sat there, utterly confused about what I was seeing. My mind cleared up enough for my brain to notice Jay had freed my hands while the monster had been attacking the others. I started to move, ready to use this chance Jay gave us. The creature was as shocked as I had been for a few seconds. Then it reached up to grab a hold of Jay's face, forcefully keeping them together. To my horror, thick, black liquid poured from the creature's mouth and overflowed through Jay's mouth, forcing its way down his throat. Muffled screams of pain came from him, the liquid touching his wounded throat and attacking the gash. No, It was closing the wound. I couldn't waste time. Racing over, I grabbed the dagger out of the dead leader's chest. With a burst of determination, I rushed over to put all my weight into bringing it down into the monster's back, mentally ordering it to stop hurting my friend. The dark shape arched back, hands at its side screeching in pain. It lashed out and a powerful arm hit my chest so hard I went flying. My body slammed against the wall, knocking me out cold. I thought I was dead. Instead, I woke up to the sounds of birds singing. I was in Jay's tent, bundled in blankets, my eyes heavy from sleep. Soon pain from the previous night surfaced. I pushed it down to keep my eyes on Jay's back, watching him breathe in his sleep. Had I dreamt the entire thing? Carefully, I sat up to look him over. He slept peacefully on his side, blankets pulled up covering half his face. Slowly, I got out of the tent to look around. In the light of dawn, I didn't recognize our campsite. I washed my face and got started brushing my teeth. I felt like if I acted normal, it would make the night's events into a dream. It was an oddly chilly morning. Jay soon crawled out of the tent, bundled up. We got to work breaking down the campsite and packing up. Neither of us said a word as we started back the way we came. The dawn fog cleared, and the morning sun chased the chill away. And yet, Jay didn't remove his layers. Before noon, we stopped at a bridge. I knew this bridge and didn't want to believe where we stood. Once we crossed this, our cars were a short walk away. It should have taken much longer to get here. I was glad to be nearly out of the woods, but this wasn't right. I turned to face my friend, finding him a few feet away. "This is me," he said, the words causing a hole in my chest. "What are you talking about? Let's go," I told him. I took a step toward him. He took a step back. The smile never left his face. "Thanks for asking me to do this. I had fun." I shook my head, not wanting to hear any of this. "I'm sorry. I didn't do anything to help," I started, but he cut me off. "There's nothing you could have done. It wasn't your fault." I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept any of this. Dark shadows moved in the trees next to the tracks. Countless eyes watched us, waiting. I had fun. It was like being a kid. I never really got that chance to just hang out with someone, not have the fear of them talking behind my back. You were a good friend. I hated how final this all sounded. I decided to go over to him and drag him back, kicking and screaming, home. I took 2 steps forward, and the shadows in the trees reacted. A burst of dark, black smoke came between us, sweeping Jay away as if he had never been there to start with. I yelled for him while running towards where he had stood. I fully planned on not leaving without him. A wave of crippling fear hit me. It stopped me in my tracks, my body shaking with cold sweats. Some unseen force told me I was free to go, but if I pressed on, I would not leave these woods. Either one of us left here, or neither of us did. I hated myself for turning on my heel and leaving Jay behind. My girlfriend noticed something was wrong when I came home. I lied, saying I was just tired. For the next few days, I stayed in bed, unable to forgive myself for what had happened. No one came looking for Jay. He sent out a message to the people he knew that he would be gone for a little while longer. I soon realized he didn't have very many people in his life who would notice his absence. He could simply disappear without anyone making a fuss. I haven't been able to figure out what we came across in those woods. The small town near the old pathway burned down. No one was reported missing or killed. The fire swept away any clues of what might lurk in the forest. I don't know if Jay is safe with that monster. At the very least, whatever that thing was seemed to be his type. Tall, thin, with long hair. I would like to think he would laugh over me thinking that. I'll miss him, and regret losing a friend just as I got to know him. But I think he's glad one of us was able to get free, to live a normal life. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.